Good evening. Protests in the wake of George Floyd's death continue peacefully here in the Star City today, but that hasn't been the same story in other parts of the country. We want to get you up to speed by giving you a live look at the situation across the country. We start in Boston, where looting continues tonight, and we watched as a police car was set on fire and bottles were thrown at police officers. Now we want to get you to Washington, D.C., where you can see that smoke rising. There have been fires, multiple fires set within blocks of the White House. There are reports of protesters burning American flags and cars. And we've been following this situation all day yesterday and all day today. And earlier today, protesters lay on the ground, motionless in Market Square in response to George Floyd's death while in custody. Protests this afternoon remained peaceful. No incidents were reported. There weren't as many people out today as there were yesterday, but it was still a very vocal crowd. Group leaders say they won't stop until justice is served.
You can't throw rocks and then get mad when somebody throw rocks back. But we ain't out here throwing rocks. They out here using these voices. We're going to use this voice. That's why my voice is gone right now, but I'm going to keep using it.
He said he doesn't know how long they'll be out, but it could be well past midnight. As protests continue, city leaders are urging peace. 10 News reporter Jessica Jewell joins us now in the newsroom. Jessica, what was the message from the mayor and the police chief earlier today? Protests are happening across the area, including in Martinsville. Today, people walked along the street chanting, "I can't breathe, let me breathe. No justice, no peace." They also lit candles while speaking about people they knew who were victims of police brutality. Stores in our area that closed as a precaution during the protests are expected to reopen tomorrow morning. Signs are posted on the doors at the Valley View Target in Roanoke saying they'll reopen at 8 a.m. tomorrow. Walmarts in the Roanoke area, including the one at Valley View, closed before 2 this afternoon, and the mall itself closed an hour early tonight. Also, the Sheets at the corner of Orange Avenue and Williamson is also closed as a precaution. You may remember this is where another protest happened last night. That's video that you're looking at right now. The Sheets on Peters Creek is also closed for the night. Protests are happening in other parts of Virginia as well, and that's led to the closure of Capitol Square in Richmond until further notice. You're looking at video from Richmond tonight where at least 24 people have been arrested for violating the city's curfew. That curfew is in effect now through Wednesday morning, and it starts at 8 each night until 6 in the morning. City leaders say people should only be out if they have to go to work, a place of worship, or in an emergency. Last night, 2 Capitol police officers were hurt, but they are expected to be okay. The protesters set several dumpsters on fire near the Richmond Police Department headquarters.
The images we've seen across this city is not the Richmond we know. It's not the Richmond we know.
Protesters also vandalized a Confederate monument. It has been another day of high tension and violence across the country. Curfews are in effect in dozens of cities as tens of thousands continue what has been a week of protests. As Jay Gray explains, many of these protests are turning violent and destructive. We want to turn now to your forecast. Meteorologist Delaney Worden joins us now. We had a gorgeous day.
Absolutely.
Temperatures were perfect. The sun was out. There was no rain. I mean, it was magnificent.
Yes, and that was the big thing. No rain once again.
Tonight is where we find 10 News anchor Brittny McGraw right now. So, Brittny, a lot of questions about what's happening in Lynchburg.
That's right. Lynchburg's mayor has said that the city has already gone through a lot. They've dealt with the threat of a dam possibly failing. They've dealt with a tornado. Right now, they are working through this pandemic, and the mayor says they'll get through this. Protests that escalated to violence and left businesses like Fifth and Federal boarding up windows and cleaning up. During a press conference this afternoon, the mayor stressed that instead of the violence displayed last night, people need to show unity and compassion. Community leaders urge residents who are frustrated with what's going on to join community groups that are already fighting for change. They say moments like this should unite the community, not divide it. And Police Chief Ryan Zudema said that they will continue to have a dialogue with the community about what it's going to take to get to solutions, but he stressed that is going to be a marathon and not a sprint, as people here in the city continue to deal with the emotional impact of everything that happened last night. There is some very real physical damage that businesses are dealing with and cleaning up. 10 News reporter Jessica Jewell has been following that part of the story and has how businesses will be moving forward. Jessica. Two churches have organized a prayer event tonight in response to last night's event. McKinley, what all are you seeing there right now? And earlier today, city leaders stressed that they understand people's frustrations with what's going on, but they know that the city of Lynchburg can work toward peaceful solutions. They say they don't want to see the violence that has continued in other cities continue to happen here. Back to you, John and Lindsay. Good evening, and thanks for joining us as we stand in the shadow of the Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial in Roanoke. Right now, so many people are wondering if we'll ever achieve his dream of a nation where people are judged by the content of their character and not the color of their skin. But some of the more tense moments of the fight were in Lynchburg, which is where 10 News anchor McKinley Strother is standing by to share some of our stories tonight. But to better understand the present, it's important to first take a look at the past. In the summer of '63, the headlines tell the story of the fight for civil rights across the country and here at home.
We were marching for desegregation of lunch counters, theaters, just everything was segregated.
A then 16-year-old Thurman Eccles Jr. would find himself in the middle of that fight for equality and change on June 10th, 1963 in Danville.
That's when they put fire hoses and knocked down people.
It was a day that later became known as Bloody Monday, described as the most violent day in the civil rights movement in Virginia.
How June 10th really got the name Bloody Monday was the night of June 10th. That's when they marched from Bible Way on Grant Street over to here, and that's when people were beaten up.
Police and deputized city workers arrested 60 people and injured at least 47. Eccles says he was the first protester arrested.
That's where we went to jail, over here.
And says he can see the similarities between the fight then and now.
If anybody thinks that we have arrived, they're mistaken. We still made a lot of progress, but there's a lot of progress needs to be made.
Historians will tell you to understand the present struggle, we must look to the past and finally reckon with what's been described as America's original sin, slavery.
If we see America, we see remnants of slavery. There is no America as we know it without slavery. It's basically that simple.
Dr. Warnie Reed, director of the Race and Social Policy Research Center at Virginia Tech, says the notion that came with it, that black people were inferior to white people, touched just about every aspect of society.
So virtually all of the institutions in America, I shouldn't say all, almost all, were built by slaves and the result of slavery.
Even after the abolition of slavery following the Civil War, black codes, which were laws that limited the freedom of African Americans, voter suppression, and the birth of Jim Crow laws and segregation, paved the way for the continued legal oppression of black Americans.
With the redemption, with the end of Reconstruction in the 1880s and 1890s, systems were built to reinstate white supremacy, and those systems carried into the 20th century.
People across Southwest and Central Virginia fought back against those systems. This protest in Lynchburg against segregated food service at the Woolworth store. Marchers lined Main Street in Farmville in July of '63 with the message, "Integration now, not later." And demonstrators took to the streets of downtown Roanoke in July of '68 to protest after 2 black women were denied educational opportunities. Now, there is a growing push to examine how America's history, from slavery to segregation, impacts the country to this day through systemic racism.
Looking at how, because of people's racist ideas that come from positions of power, how they keep people based solely on skin color, how they keep them in places of oppression, how they're denied access to proper health care, proper mental health care, how they're giving inadequate education based on a zip code, which is in our country a lot of times based on skin color and race.
And as this renewed call for racial justice and equality rings clear,
The late Dr. King once said, the time to do right is now.
Reverend Eccles says it's important to recognize where we've been.
We want our children, grandchildren, and other generations to know just what happened in Danville.
To pave the way for a future in which all are truly treated equally. Reverend Eccles wrote the proposal to get the Bloody Monday historic marker erected in Danville. It was dedicated in 2007. Yes, this is an amazing and beautiful day that we get to dedicate this home here on Mormon Avenue. And what a journey it has been to get to this point. We have been in the midst of a pandemic. We have had to deal with some rainy days during the build schedule. However, we have successfully built this home, and we are so excited to celebrate with Habitat for Humanity and Courtney Warren and her family as we prepare to cut this ribbon and hand over the keys to this home. Courtney Warren and her family have put in the work day in and day out alongside work colleagues, Habitat volunteers to do the work to get this home done. And today, she and her family will have the opportunity to move in. At this time, Courtney would like to share a few words. Courtney, once again, we want to say a big congratulations to you and your family. And of course, thank you to everyone who has been out here in support of Courtney, her work colleagues, our generous sponsors, volunteers, everyone who has put in the work to make this happen. Now, in just a few minutes, we are going to take you inside Courtney's beautiful home to give you a sneak peek at what she and her family will get to enjoy. We'll have that for you coming up in just a moment. Patrick, back to you.
10 News anchor Brittny McGraw is live now at Bissett Park in Radford, where the plunge will actually take place.
And Brittny, you are really getting into the spirit.
Yes, so one of the themes for this year's Polar Plunge has been the colony is calling you, and a colony is a group of penguins, so hello, I had to get into the spirit. I am gonna be my best penguin, going all out for the Polar Plunge. We are so excited for Saturday's event. You all have been so generous in our challenge to raise $500 during our 90 minutes of news, and we are almost at that goal. So if you want to donate, please continue to do so at polarplunge.com/New River. Joining me now is Mr. Frank Fitzgerald, who is the captain of the Chillbillies, which is one of the teams that will be jumping into the river with us on Saturday. And Frank, what is one of the reasons, why do you keep coming back year after year?
Well, it's good for the community, and it's a great way to raise money for Special Olympics.
And want to show you, Frank is also getting into the spirit. He is donning his lovely pinkish, purplish tutu in advance of Saturday's Polar Plunge. You were sharing some words of advice for all of us who are going to be plunging on Saturday.
Yeah, don't wear a lot and jump in as quick as you can and get out and get changed in some warm clothes.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. We are very much looking forward to Saturday's event. Remember, the overall goal for fundraising is $55,000. We are almost there, and we are going to get there with your help. So please continue to donate, continue to contribute to the cause. You can go to polarplunge.com/New River to donate. Reporting live in Radford, I'm Brittny McGraw, 10 News, working for you.